From TeachIllinois.com, this is the Teacher's Classroom, the podcast that explores current issues and topics in education and how they relate to teaching and students. Here is your host, Matt Weld.
Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of the Teacher's Classroom. Today we're going to be talking about bullying with attorney Chad Watkins. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for joining us, and be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified of new episodes. The Teacher's Classroom is produced semi-monthly and is supported by the Area 5 Regional Offices of Education in Illinois. Information about this podcast can be found at www.teachillinois.com, which is an online professional development platform. So today, as I said, we are going to be talking about bullying and all the legal ramifications, responsibilities, all that kind of stuff. We are talking with Chad Watkins, an attorney in Edwardsville with Tuith Keeney. Hello, Chad. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Hey, can you give us a bit of a background about you? I know you are the perfect guest for this because you were a teacher once yourself.
Well, that's a lot of pressure to be called the perfect guest before we've even begun the show, but I'll take it. I'm a native of the Metro East. I grew up and graduated from Bevel East High School, college in Chicago, and after that I taught high school in Washington, D.C. for 3 years at a charter school there. I taught special education, and I coached girls basketball. In my special ed experience, I had classes in all settings, co-teaching, resource room, you name it, I did it, all kinds of disabilities. And I know firsthand some of the issues that exist with bullying for teachers on a day-to-day basis. I can remember many. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You remember many. I'm sure you had lots of stories to share.
I do, and I hope not to inundate this podcast with all my stories from back in the day, being in the classroom.
All right. So, well, just start us off with what is bullying? We hear so many times, kids come up to us and say, Susie's bullying me. And how, as teachers, can we tell the difference between what is actually bullying and what is just being mean?
Well, you're absolutely right. Bullying is a term that has been thrown around a lot these days, and I think what's important on the front end is for teachers to make a distinction between an isolated comment or a one-off incident and bullying. Per the definition in the Illinois statute, bullying is a severe or pervasive physical or verbal act or conduct that causes or can be reasonably predicted to cause placing students in a fear of harm, causing a substantially detrimental effect on the student's physical or mental health, or substantially interfering with academic performance and their ability to be a member of the school community. So bullying is a very serious concept, and the Illinois statutes had defined it as such.
I heard you say the word substantial in there a couple times.
Yes, that's correct. So when we say substantial, it means that it really has to have a detrimental effect on the student. Now, of course, bullying can take many forms. There's the traditional, maybe verbal bullying, teasing, name-calling, taunting. I mean, that's the stuff that we're aware of. But there is a difference between just one incident of student misbehavior and something that would constitute bullying. And the questions that a teacher should be asking themselves is, how pervasive is it? Has it happened over the course of the year? What are the kinds of things that the students are saying it? And how is it affecting the student? But in addition to verbal bullying, we also should keep in mind there's social bullying. There's leaving students out, spreading rumors. And it could also be physical too. I mean, hitting, kicking, punching, tripping somebody, all that could constitute bullying if it is substantial or pervasive enough.
All right. So substantial and pervasive enough to disrupt the learning situation at school, or to, in the case of the individual student, where they feel threatened.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
We're thinking about what's the impact on the classroom, what's the impact on the individual student. These are the assessments that teachers should be making when they see some of the teasing and back and forth in the classroom. And like I said, bullying can take many forms. In addition to the examples that I've already given about bullying broadly, there's more specific incidents that could also be bullying. So you have harassment, intimidation, sexual violence, theft. You may not think of theft as a bullying issue, but it could be. I mean, if the student's being targeted, if it's pervasive. So think of bullying as a potentially broad concept, but must be serious enough to reach a level where it would be considered bullying per the definition.
All right. So even if a kid repeatedly took a pencil off somebody's desk, I mean, that's theft, right?
Yeah. It could be theft per the definition, and it could be bullying or it may not be bullying. I think in a lot of cases, the teachers are the best at making that determination in the classroom. You know, it could be just a simple, these boys playing around in the class or these girls playing around. Bullying is shared equally by students of different genders. And I think the teacher just needs to be aware of what is the impact on the other student, how frequently is it happening. Those considerations should be at the front end of any of these incidents.
All right. I'm going to ask you about consequences later on.
Sure.
Okay. But while we're talking about bullying, you mentioned this briefly about the different kinds of bullying. There's verbal, right?
Yes. Social,
physical, and then cyberbullying would be, I guess, a fourth characteristic that's fairly recent.
You're right. With the explosion of the internet and students having cell phones at very young ages, a lot of communication between students takes place via Facebook, via text messaging. And within the school context, teachers and other staff members need to be aware of how bullying via the cell phone, via email, could require the school to take action in certain circumstances. Cyberbullying is a new and developing concept in the law that I'm sure, as this presentation goes on, we'll get into a little bit further.
Okay. Yeah, because, my background in tech and all that kind of stuff, I'm interested in cyberbullying and what all it is and what it isn't, and definitely the school's responsibility. If it's a school computer and that kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's something, when there's a cyberbullying issue, the first question that should be asked by people who are looking into this in the school is whether school equipment was used for the cyberbullying. If they're using school computers, I know some schools are issuing Google Chromebooks or an iPad. I mean, that's school property. And if the students are using that to bully another student, the schools should be taking action there. And even if they're not using school equipment, then the schools may still need to take action. The question of whether or not cyberbullying that takes place away from school is actionable by the school really depends on what is the disruption to the school environment. If something that happened during the weekend or after school is brought to school and becomes an issue at school, then teachers and administrators may need to take action.
Okay, so let's say a school district has a one-to-one Chromebook program where the kids take their devices home. So the kids are on school-owned property at home on their parents' Wi-Fi network. And they bully somebody on GroupMe or whatever using the school's Chromebook. Yeah, how much of the bullying that goes on can be actionable by the school or by the classroom teacher?
I think in a situation like that, it would really depend on the circumstances and how it would impact the school operations. If school property is being used, I think there's a very credible argument that school districts could rely on in taking action for that bullying. It's their property. They have provided to the students. I'm sure that when deals are given to students, there are certain agreements about what is appropriate use for that equipment.
Sure.
And when students don't abide by those agreements, then the schools, I believe, have grounds to take action there.
Mm-hmm. All right. But really, the key here is whether or not it impacts the school day.
Yes, that is always the question about whether the schools should take action about bullying. Does it have a nexus to the school? If it doesn't relate to the school, then it's probably not the school's business to get involved.
Because all the time, your teachers here, so-and-so was, posted on Facebook or sent a snap about so-and-so.
Yeah.
But it's really not the school's responsibility until something happens at school.
Well,
is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much accurate. I think what I would like to communicate to teachers is that you don't necessarily have the obligation during your free time, which I know there's not a whole lot of as a teacher, to scour social media or text messages from students and see what they're doing and what they're saying outside the classroom. You don't have that obligation. But if
Thank
something
goodness.
Yeah, exactly. But if something is brought to you and you can see the impact that it's having on your classroom, and there is substantial or pervasive bullying that's going on, then you can take action if it's causing a substantial disruption in your classroom. If it's not, then it's probably outside of your purview of what you should be taking action on.
Well, and that in itself should be a relief to teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine having to come home at night and, find all your students' accounts and go through them all? And
absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think there's good separation between the personal and the professional with social media usage outside of school time.
All right. Hey, I have a hypothetical situation for you.
Let's hear.
All right. Robbie passes Anna in the hallway and calls her a bad name with sexual overtones. Mm-hmm. All right. Robbie keeps walking. Anna just rolls her eyes and continues walking away as well. It doesn't happen again. She doesn't seem affected. Is that bullying?
Well, when you're deciding whether or not one word or one comment would be bullying, I think it would be pretty difficult given the substantial and pervasive requirement in the Illinois statute. However, something that you mentioned in this hypothetical was the sexual overtone in the comment. And I think that may be something that you should pay particularly close attention to, given its use of gender and gender being covered by one of the federal protected classes that I'm sure we'll discuss at some point during the conversation.
Yes, I'm writing that down to make sure I cover that. All right. Okay. Here's another one for you then. On a Monday morning, a student comes up to you as the classroom teacher and shows you a Snapchat that was sent by another student over the weekend. Okay, so this happened outside of school. And the message said that, oh my God, George, another student, is just an idiot. If he looks at me one more time with his stupid face, I'm going to smack him. Okay. George has a learning disability and was repeatedly picked on by Sam for his disability throughout the week during class time.
Okay. Well, first of all, we have a tweet that was sent outside of class time during the weekend. So because it took place away from the school, as a teacher who gets that information, your first thought is not, we have to take action immediately because it was away from school.
All right.
You would have to look closer at the circumstances in determining